Lesson 1.2, dealing with tenths and hundredths. All right, let's start out looking at what we talked about yesterday, where we have these numbers and it says the different place values, the 10,000s, thousands, hundreds, tens, ones. We talked about all that yesterday. So we'd say this is 324. But now let's take, instead of staying on the left side, let's go to the right side of the decimal point. And now we have these two. And we have tenths and hundredths. And just like it goes from tens to hundreds to thousands over here, it goes from tenths to hundredths. And what do you think would go here? Right, thousandths. So let's look at how we would say this. Well, we might say 324.63 or 324.63, but we're going to say it a little bit different. We're going to say, keep the 324, but instead of saying point or decimal point, we're going to say and. So right there, instead of the decimal point, we're going to say and. So 324 and 63 hundredths. And so we say and in place of the decimal point, and then also everything to the right of the decimal point, we just say it as one big fraction. So 63 hundredths. It doesn't matter what's over here, we're going to say it as a fraction. And the bottom number is going to be either 10, tenths, hundredths. If we have 3 digits and there's another one over here, it would be whatever it is, thousandths. So if we added a 2 right here, it would be 324 and 632 thousandths. When we're writing a fraction as a decimal, we have our fraction and we have our decimal. So 9 tenths, we write it as 0.9, and we would read this as 9 tenths, or 0 and 9 tenths. This we see 66 hundredths, we write it as 0.66, or 0 and 66 hundredths. The same thing would be going backwards. If we have just this, and we want to write it as a fraction, it's going to be 9 tenths. We have 9, and then it's in the tenths position. The first one after the decimal is called the tenths position. So our denominator would be 10, so 9 tenths. Let's do some practice. We see this big bar right here, this big graph. And we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 lines, and 2 of them are shaded in. So we'd write that as a decimal that looks like this. 0.2, 0.2. We'd read that as in words as 2 tenths. Let's look at this one. Now we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 columns, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 rows. So I know that 10 times 10 is 100, so there must be 100 little squares in here. And I have 10 shaded in here, 10 shaded in here, 10 shaded in here, 10 shaded in here. So that's 10, 20, 30, 40, 41, 42, 43, 44, 45, 46, 47, 48. So that's 48 out of 100. So I write that as 0.48, or I'd read it as 48 hundredths. For these next 3, we're going to write each decimal as a fraction or mixed number. Remember, a mixed number is just a whole number in front of your fraction. So I have 3.23. We know that since there's a whole number, it's going to have to be a mixed number. And I have the 23, or 23 hundredths. So I write that as 3 and 23 hundredths. The next one is 0.51. I don't have a whole number, so it's just going to be a fraction. And I take my number. I just have the 51. So I have my 51 on the top of the fraction. And I'm in the hundredths. I have tenths, hundredths. So it's 51 over 100, which we read as 51 hundredths. And now I go to question number 5. I have 1.7 or 1 7/10. Since there's a 7 here, I have the 7 on the top of my fraction bar, and it's in the tenths position, so it's 7 over 10. So I read that as 1 7/10. Now this next one, I'm going to try to have you figure out. This is going to be a little bit harder. We're going to talk about it in class in a small group if you don't understand it, but I want you to try. So I'm going to leave this up here and I'm going to read it, and you read it along with me. Betty made 3 out of 10 shots while playing basketball. Give 3 fractions that are equivalent using 20, 50, and 100. So your denominators, so the bottom number, are going to be 20, 50, and 100. So I take 3 out of 10, and I write that as 3/10. So now I want to have one that's equivalent using 20 as my denominator. Well, 20 as my denominator is twice as much as 10. So if I have to multiply this by 10, well, I'll have to multiply this by 10. I'm sorry, by 2. Sorry about that. 10 times 2 is 20. 3 times 2 is 6. Now would be a good time, if you haven't already, to pause it and try to do this on your own. So we know that this next one's going to be 50. Pause it, see what you can do. Right. You multiplied this by 5 to get 50. So you multiply the top by 5 and you get 15. This next one's going to be 100. Pause it again, see if you can figure it out. See, you got this. You multiply 10 times 10 to get 100, so multiply 3 times 10 and you get 30. If this is a little difficult, it's okay. This is something that we're not going to learn until chapter 9, but this is taking some of the place value concepts and taking it to the next level. Well, this was lesson 1.2. Hopefully it was something that you found understandable. If not, make sure you see me in one of my small groups. And that's all. I'll see you tomorrow.